Welcome to this explainer. Building a job listing aggregator sounds incredibly simple on the surface, right? You just collect jobs from multiple boards, normalize the data a bit, dump everything into a database, and boom, make it searchable. But as we're going to see today, that surface-level simplicity hides a much, much deeper challenge. The harsh reality is this. Collecting jobs, that isn't the actual problem. The real problem is trusting the data you've collected. An aggregator is literally only useful if the data is clean, current, thoroughly deduplicated, and, this is a big one, explicitly allowed to be collected. So to figure this all out, we'll be walking through a definitive, step-by-step playbook. We'll cover everything from the data trust problem and your initial strategy, all the way to engineering, monitoring, and finally, data ownership. Let's get right into it. Kicking things off with Section 1, the data trust problem. Let's look at exactly why bad data absolutely ruins business decisions. Okay, it's absolutely crucial to understand this right out of the gate. More job listings absolutely do not equal better data. Actually, one of the most common mistakes out there is just hoovering up millions of jobs without actually improving the data quality. Trust matters way more than volume. Your aggregator should be judged on one thing, whether the data actually helps your teams make better decisions. Because when that trust breaks down, the results get messy fast. Think about it. If the exact same job appears 3 times, well, now your demand numbers are artificially inflated. If your salary extraction fails, your compensation insights are completely ruined. What if a job board just changes its layout? Suddenly, your scraper returns empty results. Leaving old jobs in the database forever means your dashboard is showing stale, useless opportunities. And honestly, ignoring automation permissions creates a massive compliance risk from unapproved sources. Which brings us right into Section 2, Purpose and Sources, where we really lay down the strategic foundation. Listen, before you write a single line of code, you have to define the aggregator's specific purpose and carefully choose your approved sources. Job boards, company career pages, APIs, they all have completely different rules. A massive mistake to avoid here is collecting from sources without checking their terms of service. You've got to confirm this whole workflow is taking place in owned, client-authorized, or strictly contractually permitted environments. Seriously, don't skip that step. You have to ask yourself a very simple question. What exact decision will this aggregator support? Is it for your recruiting strategy, talent demand research, maybe salary benchmarking or competitor intelligence? Because look, without a clear decision to support, you're literally just building a giant dataset with zero real-world value. Start with sources that are relevant, reliable, and actually permitted. Moving right along, let's dive into the engineering side of things in Section 3, Normalization and Deduplication. So here is where the technical reality really sets in. Every single listing has to follow a consistent structure, and you've got to build rigorous deduplication rules. And a quick heads up here, relying only on URLs to deduplicate is a huge mistake. The same job will often pop up on multiple pages or totally different boards. So your system needs some advanced rules to catch those duplicates by comparing titles, locations, and source data. It's kind of like putting together a giant puzzle where some pieces look almost exactly the same. At a bare minimum, you need to be tracking data across 3 core categories: core info, source data, and market data. That means keeping a close eye on titles, URLs, tags, and scraped dates. And remember, if a field, let's say a salary range, is missing, make that visible. Never, ever invent or obscure data just to hide a gap. Now, you are inevitably going to hit some technical snacks. Duplicates? They can be caught using URL-based unique constraints in your database, which automatically block identical entries. Failing salary extractions? Well, that requires customizing your regex, the specific search patterns used to pull text, for every single job board. And if you're hitting constant captchas, you're going to need to configure your scraper to reuse your browser session so you actually look like a real human returning to the page. Okay, so once the data is actually flowing, we move straight to Section 4 to ensure it doesn't just rot sitting there: monitoring and lifecycle. You absolutely must monitor the health of your sources to catch broken code, and you have to manage the life cycle of these listings. Jobs expire, roles close, and companies are constantly reposting the exact same position. Ignoring stale listings is a critical mistake. You have to decide, right up front, exactly when listings should be refreshed, archived, or just removed entirely. For example, if a source returns 0 listings, it might not mean there are no jobs. It might just mean the page's layout changed. To avoid getting blocked, you'll want to rate limit your requests and cleverly rotate your user agents. Or if a page requires heavy JavaScript just to load the job cards, you might need to completely switch up your tech stack to a browser automation tool like Selenium, paired with an AI solving service. All right, finally, Section 5 addresses the human element of your data pipeline, validation and ownership. Look, before you go using your data for high-stakes hiring strategies, salary reports, or big leadership decisions, you absolutely have to manually validate the quality of a sample. Please never act on noisy or incomplete data. And crucially, this is the big one, you have to assign a clear ownership over that data quality. Because it ultimately comes down to this: who owns the workflow? If nobody actually owns the data quality, your entire aggregator becomes completely unreliable. Fancy technology cannot fix a fundamental lack of accountability. Your team needs specific names attached to these questions. Who updates the broken selectors when a website's layout changes? Who reviews failed jobs? Who's checking the compliance rules? Who validates the salary extraction? And who is monitoring those duplicate rates? Every single item on this list needs an actual named owner. So, out of all this massive pipeline architecture and monitoring we've talked about, what do you think is the single most important metric to track? It's data freshness, hands down. Treating empty results or stale listings as real, actionable market signals without actually checking source health is a fatal error. Your team should know exactly when each source was last checked successfully. Because if you don't know the freshness of your data, you simply don't know the current job market. By following this checklist, from clearly defining your purpose to handling deduplication and assigning strict ownership, you transform what could have been a noisy, totally untrustworthy database into a highly useful, highly accurate intelligence system. So definitely save this checklist before building or scaling your next job aggregator, especially if major recruiting, salary benchmarking, or product decisions depend on that data. Ask yourself right now, can the team truly trust this data before making their next big decision? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you walk away ready to build far smarter data systems.